So this week, we're going to hear the reactions of Lili's kids to some of our previous episodes, which is fascinating. And then I'm bringing a list that I found of the most desirable places in the country for a single parent to live. And we have some very interesting thoughts on the subject. So let's get started.
I'm Lili, single mom to teen twins.
Mother! I'm recording in here!
And I'm Scott, single dad to a preteen boy.
Dad!
It's under the sink!
We're two old friends trying to navigate single parenting.
And spending the whole time thinking, I hope I don't fuck this up. We now have 10 episodes out, and we haven't really talked about any of the responses to it. And what I think is so funny is that your kids are offended.
Oh, they were so offended. I mean, obviously affected by the parenting that they've had, but like when they heard that your son has to get, like, you're sleeping and he has to get himself up, showered and ready before you woke up, they're like, what a terrible parent. Like, why wouldn't he get up with his kid? He's 10 years old. I can't believe that. And I was like, well, maybe you love your mother more now.
See, I'm here to make you good. How many times have I said I'm here to make you look good? But no, in my defense, I work till about 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning. Mm-hmm. So, in order for me to do my job, and because I am there when he gets home at, 3:45, and I spend an hour or two with him when he gets home every day. And there's all this other time in the day that I'm spending with him, and I'm working till 1 o'clock in the morning. I need to sleep till 7:30. Otherwise, 6.5 hours, I can't really do a lot less than that. He wakes up at 6:30 every morning on his own. And I told him, listen, you're going to wake up at 6:30. I'm not getting up with you. Like, I'm sorry. I'm just not getting up with you.
What age was he when you told him that?
When he was 9. I started when he was 9. I said, if you're going to get up that early, it's just, because I'm dead all day. Like, I have to work so late that it's just not doable for me. And then that turned into, hey, do you think you could take a shower? And he's like, sure. So he started taking the shower. So it wasn't like I sat him down one day. It said,
I was
listen,
like, Daddy's sleeping in. You're on your own, kid.
You're on your own, little man. I want you regimented every morning, showered and eaten. I make him breakfast most mornings.
Well, my kids were super offended at your lazy parenting. And they even said that they wanted to be guests on the show to like stand up for other, for themselves as teenagers and for other teenagers, because they were, they thought your cliched thoughts about teenagers were just the worst.
Bring them. I love that. If I can't be cliche, then what am I? Like, thoughtful? I don't know. And that's horrible.
What was it that they were reacting to? Gosh, I can't remember exactly what had enraged them. The thing about periods enraged my son.
Previously on Hope I Don't Fuck This Up.
It just made me think of when I tell women that they're acting the way they're acting because they're on their period.
Oh, totally.
And the last thing any woman ever wants to be told is that their emotions are invalidated because of their hormones. And I think letting go of that was such a game changer for me in how I dealt with women in general. And it came from just having mostly female friends and seeing having real conversations about it.
I want to apologize on Scott's behalf to every girlfriend or spouse he's ever had.
He didn't mean it?
I didn't say. I did it I let go of it in my 20s. I'm not saying it was up till like last year, but no. I think I'm going to be honest about it.
And a flashback.
Look, it enrages me. Like
as it should.
I mean, can we not? I mean, the thing I do want to point out is we should be allowed as people to grow. We didn't all come out fully formed.
Yeah.
We didn't have, perfect enlightened instruction growing up. We learn as we go. And the way you learn, part of how you learn is being allowed to have failed and being allowed to change.
Other people just aren't putting it on a podcast.
But I'm fine putting on the podcast and just telling people, please have grace for people in process. We're all in process. And that means that past you is going to be embarrassing to you, and probably, you would probably cancel past you. But that doesn't mean we shouldn't talk about it. I think we should always have grace to talk about how unenlightened we used to be.
He was offended mostly by how late you were enlightened. He's like, when he was talking about that, I thought that he was going to say like, oh, I didn't say that after like, I was like, 10 or 12 or 13. He's like, but he was in his 20s.
Kids today have no, and I'm saying kids today like a crotchety old man I
Yes,
am.
you are.
They have no idea of what kind of environment we grew up in. Like, it is so different. The level of like sort of emotional intelligence was a dirty
absolutely.
word when I was growing up, especially for men. Like, the shift in the past 20 years. And what always gets me is that I was part of that shift. I was leaning into that shift. I was like believing wholeheartedly in it and growing with it. And now the fact that I like grew up at a time where I wasn't taught that, I had to teach myself. It's like yelling at the person who had to teach themselves how to read, that they didn't know how to read when they were
sorry,
young.
Scott. You should have let us know that you couldn't read when you were 5.
I will say, and this is no indictment. I don't know your kids at all. I own so no indictment of them all, I'm sure. But I do think there's not that understanding of
how different,
the fact that of how different it is,
Yeah.
and there's a very quick to sort of kind of judge that.
Yeah.
And the one thing that I would love to be able to work on, to me, that's the next thing to work on, is just to try to pull up and down, older, younger, the judgment in general, because we're all just so quick to judge. And
well,
I
it's
mean,
hard.
we saw
I mean,
that.
yes,
Yes,
and there are some things that generationally, that there are some things that are condemnable. And I'm thinking, because we just had an election, and there's all kinds of horrible things happening in our political life, in our country in general. But thinking about like Nazi stuff, like there is no forgiveness for anything that.
I'm not a Nazi apologist.
I know. No. I'm just saying, like, there is an interesting case that you're making for like forgiveness about bad past behavior. And I guess that comes with real contrition. Like, you realize that you did something that was wrong, and that you would never do it again, and you understand why it's wrong, and you move on. And then there's some things we absolutely can judge people for doing in the past that are not entirely forgivable.
Well, how about we switch gears completely and talk about this list that I found that I think is really interesting. I really want to get your thoughts on it. So there is a list of the best U.S. cities for single-parent home ownership. So it's the top 5 and then the worst 5. And so these are housing markets for single parents, the best place where you're going to get the most support as a single parent. And it was a really interesting list because it is not what I expected. So what would you think the best area in the country would be to be a single parent?
I think it's here. I mean, we're talking about home ownership, and that like is not a thing here for those of us who don't have.
I mean, that is definitely true, and that is a part of this. But this, it's also, it's about resources. It's about babysitting, affordable babysitting. It's about unemployment rate. So, I mean, there is cost of living. So keep that in mind. Cost of living does matter.
So let me pick 5. I'll say.
Yeah. What would you think the 5 would be?
I'd say New York, Philadelphia, Seattle. Are we all city, or is it metro area too?
These are all cities.
Okay. So New York, Philly, Seattle. Maybe like a Kansas City. And let's say Dallas.
So you, out of the top 10, you got 1 right.
Good job.
And many of the ones you mentioned are in the bottom 10.
Oh.
Now, have to take all these things with a grain of salt. This is about being able to be a single parent and afford to live and raise your child. So cost of living is really important. And so that's going to actually knock off a lot of the places that you mentioned, just because the cost of living is so high.
But I will say, cost of living high when income is high also. But
and that's the thing, like cost of living lower, but some of these places, this is trying to find the sweet spots.
Okay.
So according to this list, and by the way, this is I'll put the link in the comments so that you can see it, but it's the United Way website. The top city is Birmingham, Alabama.
Oh, okay.
And it's because it has the second lowest babysitting fee, $15 an hour, third lowest unemployment rate out of all of these cities in the country. Birmingham has a very low unemployment rate, low property taxes, cost of living is obviously lower. And it's very supportive. There's a lot of services. And I think what you'll find here as we look through and we forget, some of the best places are going to be the little blue havens inside of the red states, because you get the low cost of living, but you get the support.
Mm-hmm.
But these are the rest of them. Salt Lake City was number 2.
I can see that.
Yeah, I definitely see that. New Orleans was number 3. Indianapolis was number 4. Number 5 is Tampa, Florida.
I didn't get any of them right. Oh, you said top 10.
No,
okay.
out of the top 10, Kansas City was number 8. So you got, and guess what? Number 1 worst city
New York City?
is New York City.
Why?
Because, and number 2 is Los Angeles. For Los Angeles, the median income for a single parent is under $50,000.
Wow.
And property taxes are high. Childcare costs are crazy. So yeah, when you look at the worst 5, it's like, it's New York. It's
I take so here's my socioeconomic take on it. There's way more socio that I'd like to consider than economic that I would want to consider when choosing a place. So I would never want to be in Birmingham, Alabama, although I did interview for a job down there ages ago, and I thought, could I do it?
I will tell you, my accountant lives in Birmingham, Alabama, and he loves it. And he was my accountant in New York, and he moved to Alabama with his wife. He loves it. So I think sometimes these blue havens, cities, can have this really great kind of mix of both worlds. But it is true. You then drive 45 minutes out of town, and where are you? You're in Alabama.
I don't even think you have to go 45 minutes.
I know. You drive 10 minutes.
I worked for a long time with a company that was headquartered in Knoxville, Tennessee, and it is the tiniest of blue dots. That doesn't mean you're protected from any other red that's down there. And my dad's Iranian, and one time when I went there to the airport, you know how when a driver picks you up, they have your name, and so my driver Everett had my sign, and I saw him, and I got, we're walking to his car, and he's like, "What kind of name is that?" And I was like, it's Iranian. And he told me I spoke real good English for an Iranian. And I was like, yep.
Oh, man.
Like, there's a lot of, I've had this, it's not a conversation because it's a monologue. I've had this conversation with myself a lot. Like, where can I go that's better, that's cheaper, that's, I live in an apartment, and I've questioned that over the years when my kids have been little, do I want to go somewhere where we have more space, and what do we need? And there's always been the complicating factor of work. Like, my line of work is only available in a couple of cities, and since the pandemic, there's more remote work, but that's going away slowly. It's being eroded.
I know. It's horrible.
It really is. So for me, I can only live a couple of places and do what I do. And so I've made the best of it. So you compromise it. I think I don't think it makes a lot of sense, these lists, because they're only taking into consideration a mathematical ideal.
Well, I mean, this list is about affordability, and affordability is a mix of cost of living, but also resources. So that's why, you're not seeing Mississippi on this list, right? Mississippi has got, I think, one of the lowest costs of living, in Oklahoma. These places have very low cost of living, but they have no social services at all.
Yeah.
So there's nothing to help you. So
it's not
finding
only
that mix.
It's not only that too. It's, where you're going to send your kids to school, and who are they going to be friends with when they get there? When I thought about that, so there were people that I knew who had gone there, and the same thing happens in Knoxville, where, the company that I worked for had very, very liberal media company, but all of them had to then send their kids to private school. So because the public school system is, in many of these states, bottom of the list.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's once again, I think there are places with great public schools. It's just,
I think Salt Lake City is probably if I had to pick of that list, I might pick Salt Lake City.
See, I wouldn't mind New Orleans, just because I love New Orleans, but I do. The school system is a problem.
Yeah, and the weather is a problem. All of
that's
that,
a good
but
point.
is that where you want to buy a house? Like, is there going to be a hurricane that's going to, and that's like a not small consideration that I don't, obviously, like, doesn't get factored into a list like this, but it gets factored into like a real human person's decision.
Yeah. I mean, it just shows how difficult it is in general to raise a family in this damn country.
Yes.
Like the fact that you,
or own a home.
I mean, own a home is becoming so hard. Like, but this is an interesting list, by the way, just to throw in here. The cities with the highest rated public schools, speaking to your, that are on this list. Raleigh, North Carolina has an A+ public school. I mean, North Carolina is often, I think, I know a lot of people that have moved down to North Carolina.
Yep.
My ex keeps trying to get me to move there. Tampa, Florida is actually on this list of really high rated public schools. Tampa has some high rated public schools. So if you want to be hurricaned up, but be in Tampa. But more importantly than all of that, it's like, for me, being a single parent isn't about what I can afford. It's my support network and where do they live and where are my parents? And like, I can't move to Raleigh, North Carolina, because then where's, I don't get my mom and my brother, and I need that more than I need a lot of this extra, extra.
The other indices that are in there. I mean, I agree with that, but also I think what I was alluding to is like you make different choices depending where you are. So like, where do you want to be, right? So I've decided that I want to be here because my kid's dad is here, my family isn't close, but they're close enough that I can drive. But this is where I want to be for work and for cultural reasons and for sociological reasons. And so the choices I make are different. So when they were little, we didn't get a babysitter a lot of the time. So I had a special occasion babysitter. And because we found somebody who was like a $20 an hour. That is part of your going out fee. That can you afford a babysitter? And if not, you don't go out. And for us, like, we're in a 2-bedroom apartment and our kids have always shared a room. And that's the, sacrifice that they've had to make, but me too. And so you have to make choices that align with like what you actually want. And it can't just be, this is like where we've put down on a map where you should live or where it would be easiest for you to live, because easy is so hard to define. I mean, and it's not an insignificant point. It's like when you take a human out of a list like this, you almost immediately lose the utility of a list like this.
Well, I will say, I didn't see this before. These are the ranking factors in this list.
Okay.
The ranking factors were the percentage of single parents that are homeowners. So what kind of group around there are single parent homeowners? Home price to income ratio for single parents.
Okay.
Number of FHA loans per 10,000 residents. So how likely are you to get a loan? Your annual child care costs. The
FHA loan.
Sorry.
But go on. Yeah.
Sorry, what did I say? I thought I said FHA.
That is what you said. So it's not just likelihood to get a loan. It's an FHA loan.
An FHA loan, yes. Yeah. Annual child care costs, unemployment rate, property tax rate, public school ratings is part of this. Annual cost of a babysitter, average homeowner's insurance rate, and cost of living index. So there are a lot of factors in the list. So I think what I find helpful for these lists is that maybe if your parents die and now suddenly the thing that was keeping you in your home is now gone, and your job is remote, and or you have a job opportunity in an area that like you did with Birmingham. I think one thing lists like this can do is at least spark conversation of are there options, because we close ourselves up to these options with our assumptions sometimes of, like, I've been making fun of Alabama so much my entire life that it's become this like rote thing of I'm going to make fun of Alabama. And then my accountant moves to Alabama and loves it. And it's
racist and backward, but
it's a whole state. And there are urban areas in general tend to have different makeups than rural areas.
That's true.
My mom grew up in Virginia, in a more rural part of Virginia, and yet she's only 40 minutes away from Alexandria, which is a very different makeup in Virginia. Like, and if you were to compare, the town she grew up in, Alexandria, to each other, they would be so offended that you would even loop them together.
Yes, I will say 45 minutes in Virginia is far. And also, like, a lot of my family's in Pennsylvania. Like, they're in the southeast corner, which is most of it super liberal. But like, we see what happens in Pennsylvania politically. So for me, it's like, okay, you might have you might be able to create like a core network that is aligned with your political beliefs, but it doesn't take away the fact that, like, let's say your son becomes a teenager and knocks somebody up in Alabama, like, and she wants an abortion.
Yes.
What are you gonna do, dude? You live in Alabama. There's Confederate flags like flying not far from where my family lives in Pennsylvania. Like, you go the tiniest bit west, and I mean like a half an hour, 40 minutes, and there are Confederate flags flying. And like, I don't want any part of it.
I grew up in Westchester, New York, and you drive 45 minutes north and you also find Confederate flags.
I know.
And when I drive through mid-Connecticut, the signs that I see in mid-Connecticut, I feel like I could be in the South, except with different
this
trees.
country has a problem. Anyways.
I know. I mean, sometimes a lot of times I think we like to regionalize issues that are just so urban and rural, and that seems to be the demarcation line. And so it's almost like move to a state where there's more urban than rural so that you have a stronger voice in what the, like, kind of the state's laws are. But you're not going to escape it completely. Let's leave it there. Let's say our goodbyes and enjoy our lovely February weather.
Well, and I think we should ask people, like, if they are single parents listening here, like, where do you live and is it good? Like, does it align, any of it align with what this list is, or is there somebody out somewhere else that they didn't consider?
Thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe, leave a like or a crazy comment. We'd love to hear from you, and see you again soon.